Hello everyone, and thank you once again for joining me for this video. In this video, I would like to respond to something very specific that is happening. So it's regarding the election that is happening in the state of Ohio. And so, for many of you, for those who may not know, so Ohio is will hold a special election this August, and basically, what I would like to do here is to react to a Democratic Party hack who basically claims that the GOP and Republican and conservative in general want to somehow steal that election because she realizes um, actually that the majority is not always right, and I would like to react to it. And so, without further ado, let's get into this.
On Tuesday, August 8th, Ohio has an incredibly important special election with just one thing on the ballot. A measure that will raise the threshold for Ohio citizens to amend their own constitution from a simple majority to a supermajority. The Republicans are doing this in response to what they think will be a citizen-led measure to codify abortion rights into their constitution in November. So instead of letting the public vote on what they want and letting majority rule, they've decided to sneak in an election before November, which would essentially destroy the ability of the majority of Ohio citizens to have their voices heard.
Okay, so, ma'am, once again, uh, here is something that I believe she completely doesn't understand about democracy. Once again, so let's look at the Constitution of the United States, right? So the fathers had looked throughout history at different form of governments. Okay, they looked at monarchy, they looked at parliamentary system, they looked at several other forms of democracy. But at the end of the day, they all came to understand one thing: is that when the majority has the power, the majority will always rule, and the majority basically will enforce the law regardless of people. For example, in areas where they're considered because of the demographics, there are not enough of them, and so they will always be, so to speak, on the back foot, right? And their desire and aspirations are going to be ignored. That's one of the reasons why the electoral college was created, was to allow states that are not populated to have their say, have the voice, instead of just being dominated by the big states. Okay, so what I believe she doesn't understand, because you would hear later on where she basically talks about what if 51% vote for something and 49% don't vote for something else, right? Now she says that is an evidence of democracy not working as it's supposed to. But I believe that that point makes there's something that she doesn't necessarily see. So throughout history, we've had, take Nazi Germany, the majority of people wanted to go after the Jews, and they believed that that was the right thing to do, and so they did. So democracy, or at least the majority rule principle, does create a problem if it is just a basic majority, because it means that you don't actually make an effort to talk to people, including the people who disagree with you, right? So Ohio knows that, Ohio sees that, and therefore the legislature say, well, hang on a minute, just like in order to make an amendment in the United States of America, you need the law to be ratified by Congress. Then you need the legislature, the state legislature. If I'm not mistaken, you need 30 of the 50 states to ratify that in order to allow the legislation to move forward and to become an amendment. There is a process for that. So if even in the at the federal government, in order to pass a law, okay, they require 60 votes. In order to impeach someone, they require 66 votes. The reason why those provisions were put in place was so that these type of measures are not going to be abused, because today it might be something that politically you agree with, but then tomorrow it may be something that politically you don't agree with. But either way, if what you're saying really makes sense and matters for most people, you should be able and willing to defend that with the maximum number of people, just like you see in the Senate, for example, in order to pass a bill. They require 60% in order to avoid filibuster on that. That makes sense. Okay? So, and I think sadly she doesn't seem to understand that, but let's continue.
A 60% threshold for a constitutional amendment would mean that Ohio now had a system where 41% of Ohio voters were able to stop what 59% of Ohio voters wanted. Does that sound fair to you? No. It sounds underhanded and anti-democratic and exactly in line with today's Republican Party. It's minority rule. Ohio is already completely gerrymandered, which gives their state house a veto-proof supermajority that keeps the power in Republican hands despite Democratic votes. They've already passed a bunch of new laws making voting harder, like tougher voter ID laws, shorter time for returning absentee ballots, and wait for it, banning August special elections. But they just went ahead and made an exception to their own law 1 month after it went into effect to undermine the will of the voters just a little bit more. Republicans know the majority of Ohio voters, no matter their party preference, will vote just like Kansas did to codify abortion rights into law because they don't believe politicians should be making our medical decisions.
So this coming from a woman. Let me just show you, and I'm just thinking about it live. So I will just um Democratic candidate in Ohio does not want to identify as Democrat. And I can't even remember. I think his name is Tim Ryan. Right. Tim Ryan. Okay, so um imagine use a person who is so embarrassed by the label of his party because he knows that where the state where he lives or he's seeking office or he's running for office, he knows that the people think of them or think of his party as completely crazy. And this guy, okay, the D is often silent. Okay, who is challenging GD Vance has turned the state into perhaps the country's unlikeliest Senate battleground. This guy does not even, so he is a Democrat, but he makes sure that when he was running for Senate last year, he didn't even say to people that he was a Democrat. Okay, so Columbus, Ohio seems is the kind of candidate who appears to put some thought into appearing, to put no thought into appearance. His daily uniform exude well-practiced campaign casual, Ohio hoodie on game day, a t-shirt from Dropkick Murphy, the union-minded Celtic punk band, for speech, untied white Nikes for canvas kickoff, blah blah blah. For most political races are about authenticity. At some point, who tries too hard, doesn't say it's made Ohio, perhaps the country unlikely as he's seeking to depict his Republican opponent, J.D. Vance, as the author and the author and venture capitalist made famous by a memoir of life in Appalachia, is something of a political fabulist. Okay. So Mr. Ryan is, if polls are to be believed, even a little in contention in a state that Mr. Trump carried twice by 8 points. The Democrat had effectively written off, complicating Republican plans to flip the chamber. Okay, the Senate leadership fund the super PAC closely aligned with Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, grew concerned enough over the summer to reserve 28 million for Mr. Vance. Okay. Trying to find a place. Okay, so Randy, President, right? He's really kind of a guy that created political brand and obscures nominal. But anyway, I don't think I have time to go through the whole thing. But as you can see here, yeah, as you can see, he did not himself want to identify. Tim Ryan distances themselves from National Democratic Party. In Ohio, Senator Tim Ryan avoids the word Democrat. So, why on earth would people in Ohio consider looking at Democrats? Because they know that you people are crazy. Hmm? That's the reality. They know that you people are crazy. Why should they pay attention to you and what you have to say? You know? And that's what that's what I can say to you. They understand very well the risk of voting for democratic policies. Not good. Ohio is an agricultural state. Okay? And yet you probably are going to go there and make those farmers feel stupid because those farmers, there's a push these past years where they want to clamp down on farming practices because they see that, for example, as causing issues with the environment. And I'm not saying that there isn't any issue with that. What I am saying is that obviously much like what is happening now in Holland, in the Netherlands, they have the tendency to go overboard and to do more than what is required, and therefore create more problems than they initially want to solve. So why should people trust you and what you have to say? That would be so you, as far as I know, you lose all credibility with that. But please continue.
But instead of respecting the people, Republicans are betting they can just gut direct democracy and no one will notice because they're on vacation. It shouldn't matter what party you associate with or even where you stand on abortion rights because this August election isn't about either thing. This election is about whether or not you have the power to.
Well, except that it is about abortion. The only reason why you're talking about that, it is about abortion. If it wasn't about abortion, you would not be mentioning that. Okay, the special election would mean nothing to you. You are talking about it because you understand what is happening in this special election. And what you want is in fact, a small minority group of people, okay? So the loudest, which tends to be mostly Democrats, to basically have their say everywhere and every time. And what would be the minority will have no ways, no recourse for action. Okay, so that is the issue, and that's why I believe that you can't actually win. Your policies are nonsensical, so nonsensical by and large, and they're not really helping the people. They know that. That's why Tim Ryan, when he was running last year, did not even identify as a Democrat. He refused that label because you people are crazy.
To affect change in your state. This is about the fact that Republicans are trying to strip Ohio citizens of a right they've had to amend their own constitution for almost 200 years. No citizen, no matter their political persuasion, should want to have their voices silenced. This election isn't about politics. It's about freedom, about Ohio citizens having the freedom.
I have never seen an election that's not about politics. Election has always been about politics. And what they want to prevent you to do is that if you believe that an issue is so important, then once again, I will say it, you should have no problem going, debating, speaking to people, doing everything that is necessary to make sure that you encourage and you bring as many people over, because what you want is that you walk in one direction with as many people as possible, so that whatever decision that you have taken has the most lasting impact. So a simple majority, it doesn't exist. It doesn't, in most cases, it doesn't work like that in this unless in specific case. But you're at the federal level, in the Senate, in order for a law to be passed, they require at least 60% to vote. In order to impeach a federal office holder, you require once again a 66% majority. All of that is to make sure that those processes, or even democracy itself, is not used in a wrong way. And I think that's what you, ma'am, do not understand. Right now, I believe that the GOP or Republicans are actually what keeps America from devolving into just a country of crazies. But you're too stupid to recognize that.
To decide what happens in their state. So if you live in Ohio, you want to vote no in this election, and you want to tell your entire friend and family group to vote no too. If you don't live in Ohio, then I would highly encourage you to get involved and get the word out to Ohio voters so they don't lose their freedoms and their rights. Swing Left already has people on the ground canvassing, letter writing, phone banking to make sure this Republican power grab is unsuccessful. At the end of the day, we have to start fighting back against this kind of dirty play. We have to say no more.
Well, ma'am, like I said, you want, kudos to the Republican. If really they managed to pull that off, all I have to say to you is that you cannot choose democracy or just democracy for the sake of democracy. Democracy is best lived when democracy does make sense. And it does make sense in my mind that if you want to make an amendment, okay, a constitutional amendment, then you require to have the majority of people, a super majority of people, in order for that amendment to pass, because it means that, you know, the winds of power change from one party to the next. What you don't understand is that then the next time someone else can come from with about an issue that matters most to them, and they also will change it. But if you're on the other side, or the losing side of that issue, you would also have a problem. So I think it's a good thing. If you want something as important and lasting as making an amendment to the state, then you have to convince those people the right way. You have to go and speak with them. You have to argue with them, disagree with them, persuade them, debate with them. But what you cannot just do is to say, okay, we're gonna do a simple majority of one vote and then go. No, that's not democracy, really. If you want democracy, do it. Talk, speak, debate, and
See
that's
you.
it.
You can't keep cheating your way into unchecked power because we're paying attention now and the buck stops here. Vote no. Ohio.
So there you have it, people. You heard it for yourself, and that's my reaction. And I think it is a brilliant play by the Republican. If you want your left-wing policies to be implemented in the long term, well, it's very easy. Convince your people. Okay. If you can't do that, then it's sad. What can I do? What can I say? Anyway, so that's all for me. I hope you will like, comment, and share an Unshackled Perspective by Anthony Mukanya. Thank you very much. Peace.